Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Top Producing Zone podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Jin.
And I'm your other host, Shane Carvalho.
We got a great topic for you today related to mindset. Today we're going to dig into the topic of failure, why people struggle to deal with failure, and why we think you should actually embrace failure to be super successful in your business.
That's a great topic, and it's actually kind of funny that it took one of one of our listeners to actually bring that topic to our attention, because obviously it's something that we've both dealt with failures in both our own lives. I think most people do, and this is interesting too because I've actually experienced failure and recovery just in the last 15 years or so. So it's still pretty fresh in my mind. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's kind of interesting because I think when I was first starting off in my career, I hated failure. And I think a lot of that had to deal with how I was raised and how I grew up, right? I think being, I'm going to go stereotype a little bit, but being the Asian kid, like in a very traditional Chinese family, growing up where your five career choices is, lawyer, engineer, business person, doctor, I don't know, a rocket scientist. I probably made up that fifth one, but anything having to deal with math and science, it's interesting because I feel like there was always this expectation that I had to have the right answer, and that there was always a right way, quote unquote, to do something. And so, growing up, I think for me is I never really had an opportunity to learn how to fail. And then, I mean, we've talked about it on previous episodes, but like then going through personal failure, going through professional failure, like the first couple of times I had to deal with it in my career and in my life, I realized I didn't know how to, and it struck me really hard. And so, I mean, we'll dive more into it today, but it goes without saying, my perspective on failure has certainly changed from, where I was when I first started my career.
That's interesting that you didn't know how to handle that because it was kind of something that was not allowed. My perspective, obviously growing up, my parents had high hopes for me as well. So clearly there was some of that to a certain extent. I think for me, I think the hardest coping part of failure is regret. Like I should have done this.
Yeah.
I should have done that.
Yeah.
So I think that, I'm glad that I've learned how to deal with failure since, but I think that that whole piece of it really held me back, especially early on. And it almost puts you on pause on your life because you can't, like, I couldn't get past, I should have, it's like you're not moving forward, you're stuck.
No,
Did you feel like
absolutely.
you were stuck?
No, I absolutely felt like I was stuck. And I think like the way I saw failure was I saw it. I think I saw things very black and white, and I saw things as being very binary, right? Like if I'm approaching, like if I'm trying to do something, it's either success or it's failure. And that was my mindset the whole time. And it's like, if I fail, then that means I can't succeed. And like I think that the important nuance of that, how I thought about it before, was not only is it if I fail, I can't succeed. It was more along the lines of if I fail, then I can't succeed and I can't ever succeed at this. So let me go do something else. Right. And then to your point, my mind goes spiraling down into the, could have, should have, would have, and it's just, you dig yourself a hole that's very hard to climb out of.
Oh, totally. And then I find myself also targeting just wanting to do things I'm really good at. Like I
Yep.
didn't want to get involved in things that I wasn't the best at. Like
Yep.
I want to be the best. If I can't be the best, I'm not interested. That kind of falls into that category. But something you just totally made me think of when you're talking about like success or failure, no middle ground. I had an assistant years ago that told me something so profound that
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful to her for this. And it comes up all the time. It's like she just, we worked closely together. We were together every day in the office, and back when we all actually were in offices every day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she told me one day, she's like, Shane, you're always like stressing yourself out about right and wrong stuff. She's like, okay, let's talk about right and wrong. It's not just right or wrong. Some things just are.
Hmm.
Dude, that was so profound. There was like, all of a sudden it wasn't win or lose. Like there's some middle ground there. Some things just are. So it's like, okay, can't you take failure and kind of, bring it into that zone where you can pull something to maybe make it something in the middle? Like all of a sudden it's like good experience. Maybe it is something besides failure. I don't know,
Yeah.
just
No, I mean that I think that is like when we talk about in this episode of embracing failure, I would say that's probably one of the top points that we can talk about, which is shifting our perspective on what failure is, right? Failure is not the end of the road, right? It's not like this is it, that's it, I'm done, I can't do this ever again. It's to your point, okay, I didn't succeed this time. What can I learn from it, right? And I think that's a powerful like mindset shift. It's not okay, I failed, crap, like I should have done this and this and this and this. It's okay, I didn't succeed this time, but what can I learn from this to do better next time? And I think there's so much value than that versus to your point earlier of I'm just going to go do the things I know I'm good at, right? Because you're not really learning anything from that. You already know how to do it. That's why you're successful at it.
yeah, no, you're right. I mean, to be more worldly, or for lack of a better term, or more well-rounded, or to, maybe to be able to connect with more people, like venturing off into other things and, you know, learning, being better, I think it's probably a good thing. And I think it also keeps you from having a one-track mind. I mean, he definitely sharpens your skills, right? In other areas. So yeah, no, I agree. But it's funny because I literally remember that about myself. To this day, there's still a little bit of that. If I can't be competitive or good at it, then I want to be extreme to get really good at it, or I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think part of us like I don't know if I'll ever be that hardcore, but it's interesting. Like when you talk about competitive nature, like my mind naturally always goes to Kobe, and it's just he worked at it, he was the best, but like even he failed. I still remember when the Lakers got blown out by the Celtics back in like the early 2010s, right? But he just used that as more motivation, like how can he get better? Um, and then he came back the very next year, and it was 2 years later they beat the Celtics in 7 games. So just that mindset of constantly growing, taking what you didn't do well that first time, analyzing it, coming up with a better plan, executing against it, and then reaping the fruits of it. Well, I think the other part I want to dig into when it comes to failure and how we react to failure, as you kind of highlighted it earlier, is we tend to, I think, internalize it, right? And I mean, I certainly like had this happen to me. I allowed this failure to in my head and in my heart to define like who I was as a person and what my worth was. And that's also a very dangerous trap to fall into when you do experience failure.
Yeah, I've been the same way, to the point where I was having imposter syndrome. Like I wear that. That becomes very personal. I could totally relate. I very much so. That's heavy, dude.
How do you feel like you address that when you do feel like you're battling with like imposter syndrome?
Well, it's interesting because, I'm so used to being the guy who kind of carries everybody else, keeps everybody up. Like I was never really the guy in that situation. But after some of the things I've gone through, and a lot of it, is health related, and just a lot of things were out of my control, and then just some bad things that happened. And all of a sudden, I was the one that was down. And I was thankful for the people in my circle that reminded me of who I was. and the skills I possessed, and what I had done before, what I could do again. So I think that, I think the last time I hit failure, I think it was the first time that I really didn't know how to pick myself up. So it was, yeah, it was hard. As people like, like we're not just, colleagues, we're obviously good friends and more. So it's like, yeah, it was, this last time was really hard, but I think that what's helped a lot, um, previously and in other circumstances that were not so hard, are kind of the tips and tricks that you learn just from reading and just following other storylines and other people and what they've done. I mean, like, look, you follow some of what Kobe did, and like, I'm a big fan of Ed Milet and like his new book now, like The Power of One More. It's like you always, if you stay well read and stay kind of in the loop on, different people, not necessarily in your industry, but just how people have coped with situations, people before you. I think that, a lot of times you can find common ground with other people's challenges that have been there before. And I think that helps.
Yeah.
I just think that
Yeah.
this last time, the whole just being so down and the whole imposter syndrome, and it just, when it's like your health, your business, finances, when it's like just like all of it, like there's been a couple times in my life, and one of them was, the time when I was going through the divorce, and that's when the real estate market crashed and everything else. I mean, dude, I needed to be picked up. And this last time too, like, I needed to be picked up. So I think that not everybody's going to have those people around them. I mean, hopefully you have at least somebody, but I mean, I think that unfortunately, the dark side of this is suicide. How many people do we know in our lives that have committed suicide? I mean, I have a client that's in escrow right now. Last night, her brother-in-law committed suicide. I mean, what is the alternative to managing failure? I Most of us can find a way, and when you think about people dying over this, then it really like puts into perspective how not a big deal it is, right? When you look at it on those terms, because feeling like an
Yeah.
imposter and everything else,
Yeah.
you're feeling like you're dead and you failed and you're done and you're toast. But put that in perspective, if you can't come back from that, like, look at, I mean, I wasn't trying to go so deep on you, but it just still strikes a nerve because it's still fresh for me what I went through. You know what I mean? Like, it's heavy, man.
No, it really is. And I think you hit on like a couple of important points that I can certainly relate to as well. I think one of the big things is, you know, I think it is important. Like if you don't have a solid like support network of like whether it's business partners, where it's mentors, or it's friends or family, you should really look to like to develop that out, because a lot of times when we get into the weeds and you can't work yourself out, to your point, it really is a lot of the people around you that help lift you out of that. Like for me, when I was going through the divorce, it was some of my best friends that were constantly there for me. And even just us going to hang out helped a lot. We didn't even need to talk too much, but just having somebody else next to me helped a lot. Um,
Yeah.
I think I consider you like, I mean, we're brothers and we're great friends. I mean, I consider you a mentor just from the perspective of seeing how much you've overcome over this last like year and a half, 2 years with your business, with your health. And, like because you and I have gotten so close, it's it's a great example to me. It's a great reminder to me also of, if of being able to overcome like some really, really hard things. So that's been inspiring to me. And I think, from a personal perspective, one of the things I've come to learn is, it's also really important to celebrate like small wins along the way if you can, right?
I'm horrible
Whatever
at
it might.
that. Yeah. No, not to talk over you, but no, I'm just, as soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, I'm terrible at that. Like, it's that extreme thing again. You're either fucking crushing it or you suck.
Yeah.
Like the small
Yeah.
wins are so important, and that's why my coach got me practicing gratitude, a couple of years ago, because it's like gratitude is a great that I mean that is celebrating wins. I'm thankful for this. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful like every night. Like I'm, at least three to five things every night. That's the way for like for me. Everybody has their way. So, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's super important because it's one of the things I learned is, and this was in the mindset of, how I communicate to people or how people communicate with each other, when it comes to like being in a relationship, I guess business or personal. But there's that statistic out there where it's like it takes seven positive things, like seven positive words or statements to overcome one negative. And so you think about the power behind that. It's like, forget about even interactions with other people. Let's just say, I'm dealing with myself. I think the same principle applies. If I'm telling myself, even in my head, hey, I should have done this, I could have done that, or like, I could have been better at that. That's one negative statement, maybe three negative statements in my example. With that ratio, it takes 21 positive statements for myself to potentially overcome the hole that I dug for myself. So again, it's just like celebrating those, to your point, doing gratitude practices every morning, right? It's positive statements, reinforcing, just the small victories that you have, is super important. And I think a lot of us, like you, me, a lot of us don't realize how powerful it is.
well, yeah, positive affirmations in the morning. And I mean, I've been
Yeah.
getting myself back in the habit because for a while with everything I went through, like that was kind of out the window. But those positive, because you're talking about, trying to offset the negative. So those positive affirmations that goes towards your 7 to 1 count, so those are super important.
I mean, I'm an engineer, so I had to turn it into a math equation. I mean,
That's why
it's
I'm kind
it's
of
not that
laughing.
simple.
Right. But that's why,
I mean, it's obviously not that simple, right? But I think there is, psychologically, there is something important to that statement, from the
hmm
perspective of, it does take a lot of more positive affirmations to overcome and outweigh the negative, that we hear every day. And I think like we don't do a very good job of, because we're so like competitive, because we want instant gratification. And by we, I'm saying like us more as a society these days.
right.
It's hard to stop and pause and really affirm ourselves, each other, and have those positive interactions to help offset all the negative that we get in our life on any given day.
Right. No, I totally
Yeah.
agree. I guess now I'm always going to be thinking about this when I have a negative thought in my head. I'm gonna be like, you said seven to overcome it. I you know, I guess I've probably heard something similar before, but it's actually striking me right now just because, there were those gloomy days where you don't want to leave the house or talk to anybody or you're kicking rocks. I mean, those are the days that you're full of those kind of thoughts. So I'm thinking, need a freaking calculator to recover from all that. I mean, seriously. I mean, I know it's not funny, but I'm just thinking about that. I'm like, well, crap, no wonder, because I mean, here's the other thing. Like, I'm not one to like medicate, but drugs and alcohol, there you go. Even in our industry, like our industry is brutal for that. I mean, we're in a very high stress industry and
Yeah.
it's sad, but addiction is rampant. I mean, I mean, for some of us, like, you and I, we love to get in our workouts and, play our sports and, do what we do. I mean, on the weekend, golf, it's like, it's great that we have ways to channel that. But, if people aren't committing suicide, I mean, there's people that are, the middle road, I guess, somewhere is, looking to, drugs or alcohol to kind of numb that pain.
Yeah, no, it's a very serious, like, it's very serious, and it's very hard not to go, because some of those things are, like, especially with alcohol, it's easy to do, like, I remember when I was going through my divorce, like, especially early on, it was very easy to sit behind a computer. I'd be gaming with my friends, but it's so easy to just grab a drink. And once you grab one drink, it becomes two drinks and three drinks and four drinks. But again, it goes back to like, I mean, thankfully I had the support of my parents, my family, um, constantly checking in on me, even though at the time I found it a little annoying, you know. But it helped. It got me out of the house, right? I started running more with my brother. Like we would take runs around the neighborhood, um, focusing myself on doing like Orange Theory. And just slowly but surely, like you start getting those positive reinforcements in your life and you develop the better habits versus, kind of the easier ways to numb the pain.
Right, right. Well, and then, but then that leads to even more miserable or more, depression. Like for me,
It is. Yes.
it's been some weight gain. I've had a couple bouts of weight gain, with, depression or high levels of stress. And then you're really miserable, right? Then it's like, you're not exercising, you're not on point with your diet. And for some of us that aren't blessed with great metabolisms, I won't name anybody that has a great metabolism. You could probably put anything down these days. But like, it's like you go down any of those paths and then it just gets even worse. And then you feel like for me, especially after the surgery and stuff I went through when I couldn't do anything and I naturally put on weight. I mean, when you have zero activity and, um, gosh, I felt so far from like normal. And then it's like, forget about like, imposter syndrome and everything else. How about like, I don't want to look at myself in the mirror. Like I hate myself. It's like, just like, especially for someone like, like for me, being an athlete, playing sports all my life and, trying to stay in really good shape. I mean, I've always been on the bigger side since I played football and everything. I've always, lift a lot of weights. I'm not Mr. Scrawny or anything by any means, but it's like, yeah, you just, when you get deep into places like that where it just, feels like it's hard to come back, like forget about just imposter syndrome or any failures in business or anywhere else. But then when you have that physical failure to overcome as well, it just seems out of reach. Like it's hard to see the light. And that's kind of what we were touching on earlier in the conversation when we started, just to what extreme, you know?
Let's shift the conversation a little bit and let's talk a little bit about like ways that we can kind of overcome some of these challenges when it comes to facing failure. We've talked about a lot of the ways we can kind of get stuck with failure. So let's talk about some of the ways that we might be able to overcome it. I think we've touched on one already, which is having a very strong like support group of mentors, of friends, of family. We've talked about a second one, which is kind of slowly practicing gratitude. But what are some other ways that we can kind of shift that perspective of and not see failure for the abject like 100% like downer that a lot of people see it as, but see it more in a positive light as a way for us to better grow as both people personally and professionally.
Well, I mean, this is going back to we had touched earlier on, or I had, well, we both have touched on this, but I was talking about like, other people that have gone through experiences and how things have gone for them. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I think a big eye opener for me, and I forget who it was that got me in on this, but they're like, well, look at so and so who's been bankrupt 4 times and now is a multi-billionaire or whatever. It's like, just there's a resource to like when you feel like, because you got to understand, especially after all these years of humanity and everything, like, come on, people have been in your situation or worse. A lot of people,
Yeah.
many times. Like when we're going through these tough times, we feel like we're the only one that's totally like screwed things up, right? Like we make that mistake of
Yeah.
comparing ourselves to other people. We always assume, especially
Yeah.
now with social
Yep.
media, we always assume everybody's doing so great. Life is so good.
Yep.
They're so rich. They're so happily in their relationships. So it's like, now more than ever, it just, if you do the whole comparison thing, it can be really, just makes you more miserable. But if you do start to read and look into either people you follow that have been that are super successful now, I mean, look at like I refer to Ed Milet a lot. It's someone I definitely admire, And I mean, look at his story. And I mean, they didn't even have water in their place. Like they used to have to go to a public place, public shower to shower. I mean, they had no electricity. I mean, like, yeah, I won't go into all that, but it's
Wow.
just like if you hear, his story and to the extent, and then like, when I was at the shareholders conference last month, when he came and spoke and was talking about the car and, the money he got to get his first car, in the business. And like, it, it's just, like when you see people like that are massively successful and what they've been through, that I guess for me, it's like, for those that are feeling hopeless or that are failing hard, if you can't find a way to pick yourself up, go read up on some of these people that have been through hard times and struggles and have made it, and just at least, I guess from a mindset perspective, that'll give you hope. Like if you can't find your own hope, then go get inspired by someone else that's eaten shit or failed or just been through a lot. And it's not always just like career failure, health failure, divorce, whatever. I mean, some people get handed some shit. Like, my whole family died in a DUI accident, or, my brother got murdered last night. Like, I mean, dude, like a lot of this other stuff can really put things in perspective. You know what I mean? So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll pass it back to you for one of yours, but I mean, that's like for me, like having these people to reflect on has been helpful.
No, I mean, I think reflecting, hearing people's stories, seeing that it's possible, I think is a powerful like reminder to anyone. And I think like, and you and I have talked about this on other episodes. If you look at a lot of these people's stories, it's, I mean, you do see a lot of common themes, right? And I think one theme potentially across a lot of these stories is, they start taking one step at a time, making progress, really embracing, not letting the end goal like really overwhelm them, but kind of knowing what the process and the plan is and kind of embracing that plan and just taking one step at a time. Like I think back to my own journey with like fitness. It's funny you say you think my metabolism is great. My metabolism is actually horrible, um, and it probably gets worse as I age. But I do think about my even just my fitness journey over the last 3-4 years doing Orange Theory. I remember when I first started, like forget about losing like 20 pounds, 30 pounds, or putting on muscle, or what ultimately where I am today. I remember getting on a treadmill and I was running at I was trying to run at 6 miles an hour on the treadmill. And I was huffing and puffing after like 30 seconds. I was like, there's no way I can do this. But then you get one workout under your belt, right? Then you get two workouts under your belt. Then you get 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. Now, like 3 years later, it's like, well, crap, I'm running 12 miles an hour on the treadmill at my max. Six
Show
miles to
off,
me is like a walk in the park now.
show
You know,
off.
well, I mean, it's I think the message is, like to your point, like you see a lot of people on social media. Everything they seem to do is now successful. It's they're where maybe we want to be at, but a lot of times you
Right.
don't see like the steps they had to take to get there.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think
and
a lot of
I'm
times people lose sight of that. And I think that's
right.
I've mentioned that before on other things, but I want to reiterate that message is because where you are, where somebody else is today is not where you're at, but that doesn't mean you can't get there. You just have to take one step at a time.
Yeah, and I was teasing you. I mean, I'm just teasing you with the whole because of the whole treadmill thing and the
I
whole
know. Yeah.
Orange Theory thing. But no, but on a serious note, I mean, you made a good point because I mean, when I had my massive weight loss, about 16, 17 years ago, I lost, pretty much almost 100 pounds. For me, I remember like boxing was introduced to me to go train in the boxing gym. And I remember like the trainer, professional trainer, used to work us out hard. I mean, I thought boxing would be like what you see in the movies with Rocky and stuff, go hit some bags and look all cool and everything. Oh man, the intense training, like for like hitting the bags and all that, that's just a piece of it. The conditioning is unreal. So I remember that he would use the boxing round timer. And so we would have to jump rope for 3.5 minute rounds and get the 30-second break in between, or 45 seconds or whatever. I remember when I started, I couldn't even jump rope for 20 seconds. About a year in, I could do 9, 10 rounds. And so it's very similar to what you're saying with the treadmill, but like lifting, going through the workouts and everything else, it was so overwhelming at first. I'm like, how the hell am I ever going to do this? But it's interesting. Once you start building momentum and you start getting results, then it's like that just fires you up, like in that.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think that
yeah,
I'm glad that you brought up this example, because this is the same thing with overcoming failure in your business or anything else, is just making progress. And then we always talk about, and I know I bring up the whole reading thing a lot, but remember this extreme thing we were talking about at the beginning? Like it's all or nothing
yeah,
or fail. Well, that's when these other books came in, like, The Compound Effect, Pound the Stone, Chop Wood, Carry Water. All those books helped me pace myself like a little bit each day. Those books essentially
yeah.
get your mindset to enjoy the journey, embrace the journey, and understand that it doesn't have to happen tomorrow. But
Right.
if you think about it, not to come full circle already, because I'm sure there's a lot more to discuss, but you could see how, like, remember I was telling you earlier how I couldn't see the light at one point. There's been a couple times in life where it's like you're in so deep. If you're
Yeah,
taking these little steps, you're going to get to a point in your journey where you can see the light. And it's
yeah,
because you're not trying to see the light today at the beginning of
yeah.
your journey. It's because you are embarking on your journey, having confidence and faith in yourself that you are going to get there. You can't see the finish line, but if you're determined, if you're committed, you're going to get there. And that's a whole nother subject, like
It is.
discipline, self
Yeah,
discipline and drive and work ethic. I'll tell you, that's one thing I've never lacked in my entire life. The work ethic and the discipline, I'm on another level with it. That's one thing that I will give myself credit for. I'm insane. I'm extreme. I'm insane in that department. But even with that work ethic and that drive, the distance, being deep in failure in different areas, it made it really hard. And so, anyway, I wanted to, not trying to run away with the conversation, but I wanted to share that because that kind of closes the gap for me. That's what really helped me overcome the, okay, I suck, it's over, it's horrible, dead, not gonna happen, never gonna make it, whatever. To like when you're on top of the world, it's like the whole middle ground didn't exist to me. I only knew how to be up here. I didn't know how to be down here. Just like you said at the beginning, you never learned how to cope with this because your family said you were never allowed to drop below this. So when
yeah.
you were down here, like, okay, well, mom and dad, well, I guess there's no manual for this,
Right.
right?
How do I deal with it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely not written in Chinese. So
No, no, definitely not. No, I might have to write one in Chinese.
I'm just saying, like, I totally can relate to that, though. I can totally relate to that. And, my parents being immigrants as well, I mean, they kicked our ass. We just, they drove it into us. Hey, you're in this country, there's opportunity, go to school, study, work hard, it just, all of it. And I'm so thankful for, I mean, as much as there's some of this stuff that you're like, gosh, I wish mom and dad would have done this or would have done that. I think at the end of the day, you and I both can say about our parents that they did do enough of all the other things in such a good way that look how we came out, right? Like there's
Oh,
certain things
absolutely.
that were like
Yeah.
hardcore and probably weren't, the best, but then everything else more than makes up for it. I'm thankful for strict parents. Kept me out of trouble until I really knew or was
Yeah.
old enough to, what I was up to. I think it helped me make me the leader that I am because I was never a follower. In high school, I was never a follower. I was a leader. I didn't get enticed into drugs or, crime or just all the stuff that people got into. Not that everybody got into it, but you know what I mean? It's like that was such a like, like not even a choice.
Right.
But for other people that didn't have that guidance when they were young, like stealing or like stabbing somebody,
Yeah.
like that was just like eating breakfast. Like there was no boundary there. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
know I'm getting way off topic, but anyway.
You're getting very gangster on me, but
Very gangster.
keep in mind, I went to a very Asian school in Cupertino, so a lot of this is like foreign to me growing up. But no,
Well,
I mean, I definitely
oh, sorry.
go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say I decided to go to public high school against my parents' wishes. Went to a public high school in a kind of a tough area, which is a better area now, but it was a bad choice on my part. But I did that life experience is valuable now. I mean, honestly, because I was private school until that point. But go ahead.
No, I mean, I think just a couple of things. Like one thing, your point about like being very thankful for family and our parents, and you know, certain things are great, certain things are not, but like it got us to where we are today, and I totally agree with that. I think I'm super thankful for that, and I think my perspective, and this is probably a different topic, but real quickly, my perspective even on like my relationship with my parents has changed. Like growing up, it's one of those things. It's like, oh, my parents always kind of know, right? They're set in stone. For some reason, I always had that mindset, but now it's even like to what we talked about, even with embracing like failure and being on this journey. It's like everybody is going on this journey right now, right? Like we're still going on this journey. My Our parents are still on this journey, so they're still growing, they're still learning, and so that's also been kind of a very cool mindset shift for me, because now it's like, okay, I don't see you very, again, black and white, right? I don't see them as being very in black and white terms anymore. It's more that like, hey, I see how they've grown since I was younger to where they are now, and it's actually allowed us to have different types of conversations that we never been able to have before. So that was a super cool realization for me. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was when you were talking about the different books, you brought up the compound effect, and those two words, like, kind of a light bulb went on in my head. We've talked about, spiraling one way into the negative or reinforcing the positive. And it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, you can compound effect in either direction. You can
Right.
compound the negative or you can compound the positive, and it's just a matter of which way you decide to go.
Well, and like the math you were doing earlier, when you're compounding negative, it's not even goes beyond compounding because now it takes so much to come back from that. So
It goes,
it's
yeah,
but no, I totally agree. And I mean, it's interesting too because we talked about looking at people and everything else for inspiration, but I'm telling you, a lot of those reads hit me at the right time, I like just seriously like those books, like,
yeah,
some were recommended, some I came across, and that was a tool that I guess I never. I mean, I grew up reading for fun. I read a ton of fiction when I was a kid. I was a fast reader. I used to blow through authors I liked. I didn't even realize that someday that love for reading would actually be such a, well, not that reading fiction as a kid was not a benefit. That obviously gave you vocabulary and reading skills and everything else. But I'm just saying later in life, that love for reading has actually helped me a lot in ways I never thought. I just never thought about it.
yeah. No, that's really cool. So, I mean, I think we'll wrap it up here. Anything else you want to add before we kind of end
Well,
today?
so it's interesting because, like, I guess especially coming back from what I've been through the last couple of years, like, like obviously with the health issues and being down for about the health issues for about a year and a half, like, there's a lot of time when you're thinking about, mortality and your ability to just function, on the daily basis and everything else. And I mean, I already have had a positive outlook on life and always kind of, especially when I'm in good health and working out and doing what I do, like I'm always pretty enthusiastic or pretty fired up. And it's funny because lately, like, people around me, like yesterday, someone was telling me like, oh yeah, like I know you're gonna tell me I need to be positive and everything else, and it's like it's funny because I already with people that are in my circles, they already feel like okay, Shane's gonna be giving me a hard time about this because he's gonna want me to be super positive, and the thing is that like I drink my own Kool-Aid. Like I really believe in the manifestation of what we're thinking. Like I said, I've needed to be picked up a couple times because I've fallen off my own wagon. But after what I've been through, it's like you're talking about compound effect. Like that positivity is like more than compounded because, you know, like from where I came, just this last journey, I'm fired up. And it's like if you can go to the depths of all that and come back, I mean, obviously, a lot of people don't know, but beating cancer is a huge win. How many friends and people close to me and
Yeah.
clients and people I know have passed away from different kinds of cancer? I mean, that's usually one of those bad words out there. I mean, it's always the
Yeah.
F cancer everywhere, right? Like, so it's like,
Yeah.
coming back and beating that, it just like, yeah, of course I'm going to be extra fired up. And yeah, if you have an issue, yeah, I'm going to see the positive side of how to get after it, get through it, conquer it. You're talking at the beginning, we were talking about, people getting caught up and, failure's the end. I suck. It's my judgment and everything else. Hell no. It's experience. It's a stepping stone. It's building you. It's building your foundation. Okay, well I did it this way, this didn't work. Oh shoot, this happened to me. I guess I never saw that coming. Okay, well in the future I have to keep them, in mind. I mean, dude, and even like some of the like bad business partnership and things that have happened, like it's like, do I really need to learn more lessons this late in life? And clearly you do. Like,
Well, and I mean, I take that and I go back to again. I go back to like we talk about exercise a lot, but I go back to exercise. Like to me, it's another experience. It's another rep, so to speak, right? Where you're building that muscle and you have something to rely on when you do face adversity and failure. And to your point, like yeah, you've had to overcome so much, so now it's like your perspective is so different. And even for those that I mean, hopefully you don't have to face a battle with cancer, but like with other things in life, as you go through those things, like as you overcome one, in my head, I'm imagining like, you have a tool in your toolkit now, or you have a tool on your tool belt now that you can then rely on the next time you experience something, and you continue to grow and build that muscle to help you be more successful.
well, what's interesting is that something like cancer can be obviously really frightening, but clearly I'd built some of the muscles already even before that because when the doctor's like, "Oh yeah, unfortunately this is cancer and you have to deal with it, do surgery and stuff." And it was interesting because it was like, "Okay, doc, here, hold my beer. Let me add that to my to-do list."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, like 20 years ago, I would have been like freaking out. I would have been like, holy shit, I'm going to die. Like, so it's like, even though I'm still learning and, still building experience and everything, there was already enough muscle built. Those are enough tools in the toolkit that I was like, okay, you've been through some shit. You've been through some challenges. Life hasn't been easy. You've had to find your way through a lot of challenges. It's like, okay, this is one more thing and you're
We'll
gonna get
figure
it
it out.
done.
Yeah.
I never had a doubt. I never had a doubt. I mean, I know a lot of it's in God's hands, but I didn't have a doubt that I was gonna get through it. One way or another, I was gonna get through it. And getting caught up in the fear, or the what ifs was not even in my vocabulary at that point.
Yeah.
But honestly, I can't take full credit for that because part of it was I was so overwhelmed with everything else going on. I got hit with a few different challenges all at once. And I'm thankful for that because if I had too much free time and too much free thought, maybe it would have hit me harder.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to like make it insignificant. It was significant, but it's interesting because the impact of what it should be based on what people's normal reactions are was not there. And no disrespect to people that take it hard. It is a big freaking deal. And I'm not going to ever downplay that. But I'm just
Right.
saying the way I dealt with it, I think it was a little easier just from building those muscles over the last, years, 10, 15 years, or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, I mean, I think that was kind of a mic drop moment. So I think we're going to end on that one.
Wow. Thank you,
Um,
Mr. Jin.
no, I mean, like, I mean, I've been able to be like walk kind of in this partnership and in this journey with you over the last 3 years. And, seeing some of the things that you've had to overcome has been truly like inspiring and pretty amazing. Um, so, I mean, I'm thankful that I've been able to kind of be a part of this journey and see you come out of it on the other side. And I think that's been awesome. So I think we'll end today's episode with that. Thank you everyone for listening to this podcast. Hopefully you found, just encouragement from this. Wherever you are in your journey, just know that, take one step at a time, and hopefully our stories, um, you found some inspiration through the stories that we shared today. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and we'll catch you next time on the Top Producing Zone podcast.